Hey, my friend, come sit with me for a minute. I want to talk about something I've been through, something I have a feeling you might be going through right now, too. Have you ever had that feeling? That profound, almost holy sense of being utterly alone, like the universe itself has decided to take a cosmic eraser to your life and meticulously remove everything you thought you knew. I mean, have you ever prayed for a door to open, only to have it slam shut in your face, with a sound that just echoes in your soul for days? Or felt that solid ground you were standing on just crumble, turning to sand right under your feet, leaving you stranded in this silent, lonely wilderness with nothing but the faint, desperate sound of your own heartbeat? Man, I've been there. If this is where you are, if this is speaking to you in that raw, vulnerable place, I need you to hear me, really hear me. You are not being punished. You are not being forgotten. You are being chosen. This isn't the end, not by a long shot. This is the sacred, terrifying, and absolutely magnificent start of your real awakening. The divine isn't trying to break you, it's breaking you open. It's creating space for a power so immense, your old life, your old self, just couldn't handle it. If you feel what I'm saying, if this resonates deep down in your bones, I want you to do something for me. Acknowledge it. Share a piece of your story below, or just type, "I am being forged," to let the universe, and all of us here, know that you're in the fire and you're holding strong. Your journey matters. Your courage is a light. Let's show each other we're not in this alone. You know, it's funny how we think power works. I used to believe that to become powerful, you had to add things to your life. More money, more friends, more accolades, more stuff. But I've learned, the hard way, that when the divine, the source, whatever you want to call it, decides to forge a soul into a true vessel of power, it doesn't start by giving you things. It starts by taking them away. It's a process of subtraction, my friend, and let me tell you, it can be devastating. You have to get this. The anointing of a truly powerful soul isn't some grand party. It's not a coronation in a fancy hall with everyone clapping for you. It's not someone handing you a shiny crown or a sword made of gold. Honestly, that's all just ego candy. It's the fleeting stuff that keeps you hooked on the very world you're learning to move beyond. The real initiation, the one that matters, starts with a sacred stripping away. It begins when all those comfortable cushions you've been leaning on are pulled out from under you, one by one. That applause you used to crave for validation, it gets replaced by a silence so deep you can hear your own thoughts for the first time. The validation you looked for in other people's eyes, the reflection that told you who you were supposed to be. That starts to fade, and you're left looking in the mirror at a stranger, at your raw, unfiltered, authentic self. And you might ask, why? Why does it have to be so harsh? Is this some kind of cosmic test? A cruel game? Number? Believe it or not, it's an act of profound love. All those external comforts, that need for praise, that reliance on what other people think they aren't evil, but they're loud. They're like spiritual static that keeps you from hearing the subtle, guiding frequency of your own soul, your higher self. They make you dependent on a world that, let's be real, is constantly changing and can never offer true security. To build something eternal, you have to clear the foundation of everything that's temporary. The divine has to gently, and sometimes not so gently, remove everything you think you are, so you can finally step into the truth of who you were always destined to be. It's like emptying a cup. A cup that's already full of the world's opinions and expectations can't possibly receive the sacred, life-changing elixir of your own unshakable power. I need you to feel this truth, right down in your bones. That wilderness you feel like you've been thrown into, that's not a place of abandonment. Think of it as a sacred classroom, a holy workshop where the universe is performing the most profound alchemy on your soul. When the divine isolates you, it's not out of neglect, my friend. It's out of necessity. It carefully guides you into this space of deep solitude, patiently and silently. And yeah, sometimes it really does feel like you've been completely forgotten by everyone, even by God. But let me give you a picture. Think about a mighty oak tree. Its seed doesn't get planted in soft, fluffy, easy soil. No, it's often cast onto hard, rocky ground. It's in that struggle, right? in that fight to push through the tough, unyielding earth, that the seed grows roots so deep and so powerful that they can hold on through the most violent storms. That's what's happening to you. The ground of your life is being hardened first. The soil of your soul is being tested, not to break you, but to make damn sure that the roots of your power will be so deep that nothing can ever shake you again. You see, power that's planted in the soft, easy soil of a comfortable life is a shallow power. It's fragile. It gets uprooted by the first strong wind of adversity. But the power that you cultivate in that harsh, lonely landscape of the soul's dark nightman, that power becomes a part of the very bedrock of who you are. This period of isolation, that's your initiation. It's a divine invitation to stop listening to the noise outside and to finally turn your hearing inward. The sting of that loneliness is designed to cut your dependency on the voices of the world, so you can finally, maybe for the very first time, hear the clear, steady, unwavering voice of your own soul. That overwhelming silence isn't a sign that you're without guidance. It is the very presence of divine instruction, just waiting for you to get still enough to listen. I remember hitting a point on this journey, and maybe you're there now, where it truly felt like the whole world had turned its back on me. And in a way, it had. But here's the hook, the thing you have to understand. This isn't a mistake. It's not some cosmic accident. It's the slow, deliberate, and often gut-wrenching unraveling of your old self. It's a process of divine deconstruction, and it's being guided by a wisdom so much bigger than our minds can grasp. That path you thought was yours, the one that seemed so safe and certain, you watch it just crumble, like a dried-up riverbed. People you swore would be by your side forever just vanish. Doors you were sure were your destiny remain bolted shut. The entire identity you'd built for yourself, the roles you played, the stories you told about who you were, it all starts to dissolve like a sandcastle in the tide. You're being stripped bare of your attachments, your illusions, and all your carefully crafted masks. This, my friend, is the death of the ego. That's the part of you that lives on external validation and is terrified of being nothing. And I won't lie to you, it's a painful death. It's a series of 1,000 tiny surrenders. But you have to grasp this profound spiritual law. It is only when the ego dies that the soul can truly rise and take its place. Your old self, the one built on the praise and opinions of others, was like a beautiful, intricate, but ultimately fragile shell. The divine, in its infinite wisdom, has to break that shell, not to hurt you, but to set free the magnificent, eternal, powerful being that's been trapped inside. So this unraveling, this feeling of falling apart, it's not a sign that you failed. It's the surest sign that a deep, powerful transformation is happening. You're not just losing something, you're shedding a skin that has become way too small for the soul you are becoming. And right in the middle of that wilderness, that's when you're stripped of all the masks you once wore with such confidence. He stops relying on his charm, or his money, or his reputation to feel like he's worth something. And suddenly, to the outside world, he becomes invisible. And let me tell you, that is a terrifying and, at the same time, incredibly liberating feeling. But you have to see this invisibility for what it is. It's not a loss of your value, it's a sacred cloaking. You are being hidden, held in a kind of divine cocoon, protected from the eyes of people who just aren't equipped to understand the profound vibrational shift that's happening inside you. They're still operating on the frequency of the external, the tangible, the performative. They can't perceive the quiet, immense power that's being forged in your stillness. So, the universe, in its wisdom, makes you invisible to them. It shields your sacred metamorphosis from their judgment, their misunderstanding, and their projections. And in this hidden state, you are being remade. I mean this literally, molecule by molecule, cell by cell, thought by thought. Every single moment of pain becomes a divine chisel, carving away everything that isn't the real you. Every tear you've shed becomes like a holy water, purifying your soul. This is an alchemical process of the highest order, my friend. The universe is taking the lead of your suffering, the heavy weight of your solitude, the darkness of your despair, and it's turning it all into the pure, radiant gold of unshakable inner power and divine wisdom. You are not being erased, you are being refined. You're being prepared for a destiny that your old self couldn't have even begun to imagine. So, embrace this period of invisibility. It's in the deepest darkness that the stars shine the most brilliantly, and it's in the most hidden places that the most sacred treasures are always found. And then, in the heart of that profound solitude, in the center of that deafening silence where the world's noise finally can't touch you anymore, a miracle starts to unfold. For the very first time in your life, you begin to truly hear. And I'm not talking about with your ears, I'm talking about with your soul. It's not the frantic, chaotic noise of the world that you're hearing, with all its fleeting opinions, its endless demands, and its empty praise. No, what you start to perceive is something so much more ancient, so much more real. You start to hear the steady, rhythmic pulse of life itself beating within you. You begin to feel this deep, wordless, knowing that just hums beneath the surface of all creation. You become aware of the profound stillness that is the source of all movement. It is right there, in that sacred quiet, that you finally meet something eternal within yourself. You connect with a part of your being that is completely untouched by time, unstained by doubt, and unmarred by any of the wounds from your past. The divine source, the energy of all that is, finally reveals itself to you. But it's not with a booming voice from the heavens or some dramatic sign in the sky. No, it reveals itself as the still, small whisper within your own heart, a voice that has been there the entire time, just patiently waiting for you to quiet the world down long enough to listen. This is the voice of your higher self, the eternal, unshakable essence of who you truly are. And once you've heard it, once you've felt its profound peace and its undeniable wisdom, you can never truly be lost again. You have found your internal compass, your divine North Star, and it will guide you through any storm the world can possibly throw at you. This, my friend, is the real treasure that was always waiting for you, right in the heart of your solitude. A truly powerful man, I've come to realize. A soul that has been forged in that divine fire isn't the one who forces the world to bend to his will. That's the old way, the way of the ego, the brute force that comes from a fragile identity trying to prove itself. No, the one who holds real power is the one who can stand perfectly still, perfectly centered, while the entire world is spinning in chaos all around him. He becomes the calm eye in the center of the hurricane. He's learned that he doesn't need to dominate anyone or anything to be strong, because his strength isn't in his ability to control others. It's in his complete mastery of himself. He has come to understand that vulnerability isn't a weakness to be hidden, but truth unclothed. And there is absolutely nothing in this universe more powerful than a soul standing in its naked, authentic truth. And that truth, once it's been unshackled from the desperate need for the world's approval, becomes utterly, completely unshakable. His confidence doesn't flow from what he has anymore, not his titles, his money, or his list of achievements. All of that is just shifting sand. Instead, his confidence now flows from the eternal, deep wellspring of who he is. He has met the sacred fire of his own trials, and he wasn't consumed by it. He integrated its lessons, and now he carries its warmth, not its burn. He becomes a source of light, not because he's shouting from the rooftops, but because he simply, quietly is. And that, my friend, is a power that never needs to announce itself, because it is felt in his very presence. The world might look at this man and call him broken, because he just doesn't fit into its neat, predictable little boxes anymore. But he's not broken. He's simply unfinished, a divine masterpiece that is still in the process of being sculpted. They might see his quiet nature and call him weak, but he's not weak. He's waiting. He's gathering his energy, aligning with a purpose that's so much deeper than what they can see. And it's right there, in that sacred waiting, that a whole new kind of strength is born, a strength that doesn't come from tensing up your muscles, but from relaxing into your own presence. It's a strength born from the profound, unshakable knowing that even in the most desolate, empty void, you are held. Even in the heart of the most overwhelming storm, there is a divine purpose to all of it. He's become like a lighthouse, a beacon of stillness in a frantic, chaotic world. He doesn't chase people or approval anymore. Instead, something incredible happens. He finds that others are inexplicably drawn to his quiet authenticity. By his very being, he gives them permission to drop their own masks, to breathe a little deeper, to be a little more real themselves. He can walk into a room and shift the entire atmosphere, not because he's loud or demanding attention, but simply because his presence is so grounded in a truth that it resonates with the truth in others. He's no longer seeking to impress, he is seeking only to embody. And in doing so, he becomes magnetic, not through force or effort, but through the irresistible, quiet pull of a soul that is authentically and unapologetically itself. This strange, sacred journey keeps going, but his perception of it, his way of being in it, has been forever changed. He starts to notice that the things that used to ignite this fire of excitement in him, that constant chase for recognition, that hunger for approval, that desperate scramble for status, they all now feel like a distant, hollow echo from a life he doesn't even belong to anymore. He watches the world continue its frantic, breathless pace, chasing shadows and applauding noise, and yet he no longer feels the slightest compulsion to join in that race. Something much deeper is calling to him now, a call that isn't louder, but is infinitely more profound. And as he answers this call, he begins to see a truth that was hidden from him before. He sees that real strength is not found in how you look on the outside, not in the shape of your body or the loudness of your voice. True strength is found in stillness. It's found in restraint. It is found in the profound ability to just sit with your own thoughts and not be completely consumed by them. It's found in the courage to feel pain and not run from it, in the power to stand right in the middle of the fire and not beg for rain, but to instead trust that the fire itself is the very thing that is purifying everything that doesn't belong. And so, this man, made powerful by the divine, learns to trust in absence. He learns that the hollow places in his life aren't always mistakes or empty voids that need to be filled. They are sacred spaces where the seeds of real transformation finally get to take root. And in that hallowed space, where no one is clapping, where no one is watching, and where no one is giving him a pat on the back, he begins to meet all the forgotten parts of himself. He meets the wounded child that he had buried so long ago. He meets the silent dreamer that he was told was foolish. He meets all the parts of himself that he had to hide away just to survive in the world. And these parts, they resurface, not to weaken him, but to finally be seen, to be acknowledged, and to be healed. He no longer fears being misunderstood, because he sees now that most of the world isn't really listening anyway. They're just projecting their own fears and their own beliefs. Most people, my friend, don't seek to know you. They seek to confirm what they already believe about you. And so, he becomes content with being silent when the world screams, with stepping back when others are clamoring for the stage. He no longer needs to convince anyone of his worth. His presence is enough. His silence now speaks with a volume that his old words, his old striving, never could. The man who is being made powerful, he starts to walk a different path. It's one that's a lot less crowded, a lot less obvious, and far less celebrated by the world. It's the path of inner alignment. He begins to let go of what the world calls success, and in its place, he discovers this profound sense of purpose. He starts asking deeper questions, the questions that really matter. What is the core of who I am? What truly lasts when everything else is stripped away? What is my soul's real purpose when the titles fade, when the crowd moves on, when even my body grows weak? And in asking these questions, he finds a new, unshakable kind of wealth that isn't measured in the things he accumulates, but in the expansion of his awareness. A wealth that's not found in a full bank account, but in a full and present heart. A wealth that lives in a profound and lasting inner peace. He might still live among other people, but he's no longer swayed by their constantly shifting wind. He sees their games, their fears, their constant, exhausting need to perform, and he understands it, because he's been there, too. But he doesn't judge. He simply no longer chooses to play their game. The divine has taught him this sacred lesson through subtraction. It was through losing what he once thought he couldn't live without that he discovered the one thing he never knew he had, his own unbreakable spirit. It was through being unseen by the world that he finally found the eyes within that could truly see. It was through being silenced by circumstance that he discovered the eternal voice within that speaks without any sound. He becomes careful with his energy, because he now understands how sacred it is. He no longer gives it away to every fleeting opportunity, every pointless conversation, every battle that isn't his to fight. He starts to discern that not everything needs a response, not every door needs to be opened, and not every fight is his to engage in. He learns that wisdom, real wisdom, often looks like doing nothing at all. That restraint is a kind of strength that most people will never recognize. And yet, through all of this, he doesn't become hard. He doesn't shut down. He doesn't retreat into bitterness, because that was never the divine's intention. Power without love, you see, becomes tyranny. Strength without compassion becomes cruelty. So, he learns the sacred balance, to be firm but kind, to be clear but gentle, to be grounded but always open. He starts to move differently through the world now, with this quiet intention, with a profound clarity. There's a grace to his presence, a weight that is also a lightness. It's not because he's rehearsed it or is trying to project some image. It's because he has finally shed all the noise. He no longer seeks to impress anyone. He seeks only to embody his truth. And in doing so, he becomes magnetic, not through a forceful effort, but through the quiet, irresistible pull of his own authenticity. The pain that once felt like a punishment is now seen as a wise and loving teacher. The loss that was once viewed as a cosmic injustice is now known as a sacred refinement. Every wound he's ever had has become a window, letting in more light. Every scar has become a symbol of what was survived, endured, and ultimately transcended. He looks at the world now, and he sees how much of it is asleep, how many people are caught in these fragile illusions of status, of image, of constant, restless striving. And yet, he no longer feels the urge to shake them all awake, because he knows that awakening can never be forced. It must be chosen from within, and so he simply lives. And by living in his truth, he becomes a quiet, powerful reminder to others of what is truly possible. He understands now, with every fiber of his being, that true power is never taken. It is grown, cultivated in the silent garden of the soul. It's not something given to you by others. It is discovered deep within. And once it is truly found, it can never be taken away, because it's no longer dependent on any external circumstance or fleeting opinion. It is rooted in something eternal, something unshakable. And this man who was once so broken, who was once so alone, who once questioned his very worth and his place in the world, he now becomes whole. Not because he's perfect, but because he is finally integrated. He doesn't hide his shadow anymore. He has befriended it and learned its wisdom. He doesn't pretend to have all the answers. He has made a profound and lasting peace with the mystery of it all. There is something truly divine in a man who no longer seeks to be more, but is content to simply be. There is an unshakable power in a man who no longer fears being small, because he has discovered that the entire sky exists within him. There is a quiet grace in a man who no longer runs from suffering, but walks with it like an old, trusted companion, knowing that it has shaped him into the magnificent being he is now. He may still be misunderstood by the world. He may still be criticized, but he doesn't shrink. He doesn't retaliate. He doesn't collapse. Why? Because he understands now that not every attack requires a shield, and not every insult is worth absorbing. His value is no longer up for debate, because it is no longer external. He is no longer for everyone, and that is precisely the point. He is not here to be liked. He is here to be real. And in being real, he gives everyone around him the unspoken permission to drop their masks, too. He walks into rooms and shifts atmospheres, not because he's speaking loudly, but because his presence is so grounded, so rooted, and so alive with a power that comes from deep within. The man who has been made powerful by the divine isn't addicted to certainty. He welcomes the unknown. He knows that life is not a problem to be solved, but a sacred mystery to be lived. He has stopped chasing control and, in doing so, has found a profound peace. He has stopped resisting the constant flow of change and, in doing so, has found the freedom to dance with it. He has stopped performing and, in doing so, has finally found his true, authentic voice. And when other people ask him how he became this way, so steady, so clear, so unshakable, he doesn't give them a formula or a list of rules. He just smiles, because he knows that every single soul must walk through its own fire. Every soul must face its own silence. Every soul must be stripped of its own illusions and be left, for a time, completely alone with itself. No book, no speech, no teacher can ever replace that sacred alchemical process. It's not a curse, my friend. It's a calling. It's not a punishment. It is a preparation. He no longer prays for ease. He prays for alignment with his highest self. He no longer seeks comfort. He seeks truth. He no longer asks to be seen by the world. He asks only to be real. And somewhere along that solitary, often painful way, without ever realizing the exact moment it happened, he became powerful. Not because the world finally said so, but because he no longer needed the world to say anything at all. In the deepest silence, he found something greater. He found himself. And what, in all the universe, is more powerful than a man who has nothing left to prove? A man who has been to the very depths of his own soul and has returned whole. He doesn't fear the dark. He doesn't fear failure or rejection or loneliness, because he has already faced them all in that sacred wilderness and found that they did not destroy him. They refined him. Now, he walks with this quiet authority, the kind that can't be bought or taught, but can only be earned through experience. It's the kind of power that is felt. And while the world continues its endless, noisy clamor for more, louder, faster, brighter, he becomes the still point in the chaos, the calm eye in the center of the storm. He knows now what so few ever come to understand, that real power isn't in the noise, but in the silence. It's not in control, but in surrender. It's not in having, but in being. He wakes up each day, not with the heavy weight of needing to prove his worth to someone, but with the quiet, profound joy of simply being alive. The morning light no longer calls him to run a race he didn't sign up for. It simply greets him, warm and impartial, and he receives it like an old, dear friend. The urgency to compete has just dissolved. The need to measure his value against the shallow, ever-changing metrics of others is completely gone. He understands now that peace is not the result of external order, but of a deep, inner surrender. He walks slower now, not out of laziness, but because he is finally, truly present. He sees more, not because he's looking harder, but because he is no longer rushing past life. The colors of the trees, the sound of the rain, the laughter of children, the deep, pregnant texture of silence between words, all of it has become a profound and moving poetry to him. The world hasn't changed. He has. He no longer demands that life give him meaning. He simply meets life with an open heart, and in that meeting, meaning arises all on its own. The man who has been shaped by divine intention knows that suffering is not the end, but the sacred beginning of something new. He remembers the nights he couldn't sleep, the ache of uncertainty gnawing in his very bones, the hollow echo of a silence where he once heard only his own fear. He remembers the days when hope seemed like such a foolish, fragile, and fading thing. But he also remembers how, in the deepest pit of his despair, something inside him refused to die. Something whispered, not in thunder, but in stillness, "Stay." And he stayed, not out of strength, but out of a final, complete surrender. And in that surrender, he found a strange and beautiful kind of power. Not the power to change the world, but the power to change himself. Not the power to manipulate, but the power to endure, to wait, to listen. That power didn't roar, it breathed. It didn't conquer, it endured. And in its endurance, it overcame everything. He began to love differently, not possessively, not fearfully, but freely. He no longer clung to others out of a desperate fear of being alone. He no longer performed in the hopes of being chosen. He loved simply because it was his nature to love, not his strategy to be loved. And in that profound shift, he became truly free. He noticed how the world so often mistakes noise for confidence and speed for progress, but he had learned otherwise. He had seen how the loudest men were often the most afraid, how the busiest lives were often the most hollow. He had come to see through the grand illusion, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. He stopped chasing people who did not see him. He stopped apologizing for his own depth. He stopped shrinking himself to fit into shallow spaces. He no longer begged for a sense of belonging. He finally belonged to himself. And yet, he did not grow cold. He did not wall himself off. In fact, his heart became more open, not less open in a new, more discerning way. Not to be consumed, but to connect. Not to be drained, but to give from a place of overflow. He learned that boundaries are not walls, but bridges with gates, and that discernment is not judgment, but wisdom. He became more honest, not just with others, but most importantly, with himself. He faced the lies he had believed, the masks he had worn, the roles he had played. And slowly, patiently, he shed them all, not in a single, dramatic moment, but over time, like leaves falling from a tree in autumn. And beneath it all, he found something shocking in its simplicity. His own face, the one he had hidden for so long, even from himself. There were days he stumbled, of course. Days the old fears and shadows returned. But he no longer fought them. He welcomed them, sat with them, learned from them. He no longer sought to banish his darkness, but to understand it, to befriend it. And in doing so, he became whole. He discovered that true humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. He realized that real confidence is not loud, but deeply and quietly rooted. He understood that strength is not the absence of tears, but the courage to cry when needed, and still rise when the time comes. He no longer needs a stage to be seen. He no longer needs validation to act. He no longer needs noise to feel alive. He has tasted the profound nourishment of silence and found it more satisfying than a lifetime of applause. He sits with pain and does not flinch. He holds joy and does not cling. He lives with a quiet, powerful intention, not for show, but for the soul. And in this, he becomes something exquisitely rare, a man who is fully, completely here. The divine, in shaping him, was never concerned with convenience. The path was not paved, nor was it smooth. There were times he questioned everything, times he screamed into the dark. But it was in those very moments, those raw, unfiltered, and excruciating moments, that he was truly being remade. And he sees now, with a clarity that pierces the soul, that nothing was wasted. Not a single tear, not a single disappointment, not a single betrayal. Every broken thing served its sacred purpose. Every fall taught him how to rise with grace. Every closed door redirected him to something deeper. He learned that letting go is not losing, that endings are not failures, and that silence does not mean abandonment. He learned to trust what he could not see, to follow what he could not explain, to obey the deep pull within that made no sense to others, but led him home every single time. He has stopped asking for clarity and has started asking for courage. He knows that clarity comes and goes, but courage remains. Clarity is a luxury, courage is a necessity. And in living with courage, he has discovered a clarity of a different kind, the clarity that comes from walking forward even when the path is completely hidden. His days are no longer dictated by fear, but by alignment. He listens more and speaks less. He acts with precision. He no longer seeks to be everywhere. He only seeks to be fully where he is. He no longer measures time by productivity, but by presence. He no longer tries to fix others. He understands now that healing is an invitation, not a command, that transformation cannot be forced, and that truth must be lived, not imposed. And so he becomes an embodiment of what he once tried to preach. And that, more than any words, is what truly changes others. He sees the beauty in the overlooked, the sacred in the ordinary. A cup of tea, a quiet walk, a kind word, these are his new treasures. He knows now that life is not a problem to be solved, but a sacred gift to be received. And he receives it, moment by moment, with a profound and quiet gratitude. He becomes a man no longer carried by the current, but guided by the flow, not resisting life, but dancing with it, not demanding outcomes, but trusting the unfolding. He has stopped searching for arrival and has started truly embracing the journey. He understands now that true power is not domination, but liberation, not having control, but needing none, not being feared, but being trusted, not being admired, but being real. And in all of this quiet, powerful becoming, he has not become superhuman. He has become fully human, awake, aware, alive. He is not the man he once was. He has died 1,000 small, necessary deaths, each one a sacred passage, each one a step closer to his true self. And in those deaths, something greater, something truer, something unshakable has been born. Now, when people meet him, they may not understand what they feel, but they feel something. A depth, a weight, a stillness, a peace that cannot be fabricated, a presence that needs no introduction. That is what it means to be powerful. Not to impress the world, but to finally, completely, and irrevocably embody your own soul. The man God chooses does not rise because the world lifts him. He rises because there is nothing in the world that can hold him down anymore. Not fear, not failure, not the opinions of others, not even the echo of his own past. He becomes a man who has faced the silence of heaven and chose to keep walking anyway. A man who has bled without bitterness, been lost without breaking, and stood alone without losing himself. That is power, quiet, steady, eternal. So if your life feels heavy, if the world feels distant, if all you have is your breath and the fire inside you, then maybe, just maybe, you're not being forgotten. You're being formed. Because when God wants to make a man powerful, he doesn't give him the world. He gives him himself.